South Korea is often hailed as one of the great economic success stories of the modern world. In the span of just a few generations, it has risen from the devastation of war and extreme poverty to become one of the most technologically advanced and economically dynamic countries on the planet. Today, South Korea plays a central role in global industries like shipbuilding, semiconductors, finance, and automobile manufacturing. Its brands and innovations are recognized worldwide, and its influence continues to grow on the global stage. The country is frequently highlighted as a textbook example of democratic capitalism, a place where the power of the free market and private enterprise helped lift a nation into prosperity. It stands as a beacon of progress, especially when compared with its northern neighbor, North Korea. The difference between the two is often portrayed as clear-cut, like night and day. But the deeper truth is more complicated. When we look closer, especially in comparison to other democratic societies, South Korea's story reveals elements that challenge this neat narrative. Its success was not solely the result of free markets and democratic principles. It was also shaped by military regimes, centralized planning, and a series of structural choices that leave behind a complex legacy. South Korea's political journey has not always aligned with democratic ideals. In recent decades, the country has experienced political instability, such as periods of martial law and even the impeachment and removal of a sitting president. These events have raised serious questions about the durability and depth of South Korea's democratic institutions. Are these moments merely temporary setbacks, or are they signs of underlying weaknesses that go back to the nation's formative years and continue to influence its path today? To understand how South Korea got here, we need to go back to the aftermath of the Korean War. The war officially ended in 1953 with an armistice, not a peace treaty, leaving the Korean peninsula divided into North and South. North Korea was backed by China and the Soviet Union, embracing a strict communist ideology. South Korea, on the other hand, aligned itself with the United States and its Western allies. But despite the ideological divide, both Koreas started off in similar economic and political conditions, struggling, unstable, and deeply scarred by conflict. In the decades following the war, South Korea bore little resemblance to the free, open society we see today. It passed through 5 different governments, many of which were dominated by military figures who came to power through coups. Elections were often controlled or manipulated, civil liberties were limited, and the government tightly controlled not just the economy, but public discourse and media as well. Leaders cultivated a powerful cult of personality, creating a political culture that often mirrored the authoritarian regimes they opposed. In fact, during the early stages of development, South Korea had more in common with the communist systems it claimed to resist than with liberal democracies. The government directed economic activity, selected which industries to support, and imposed strict social discipline. In this sense, the idea of returning to martial law, while alarming today, would not be entirely unfamiliar in a country that spent much of its early post-war history under authoritarian rule. And for a time, it even seemed like North Korea had the upper hand. With more abundant natural resources and extensive aid from the Soviet Union and China, the North experienced faster early growth and had the infrastructure advantage. Meanwhile, South Korea had very little in the way of natural wealth and faced daunting economic challenges. The turning point came when South Korea became a strategic ally of the United States during the Cold War. Its geographical location made it vital to U.S. foreign policy in Asia. As a result, the country received significant economic and military support. American troops were stationed on Korean soil, and billions of dollars in aid flowed into the country. This partnership gave South Korea security, resources, and access to the global economy, a unique set of advantages that helped lay the groundwork for future success. Today, over 24,000 U.S. troops remain stationed there, and the presence of American forces continues to influence both the economy and geopolitics. But foreign aid and military support alone were not enough to spark the remarkable growth that followed. In the 1980s, South Korea began opening up both politically and economically. While China took a different path, embracing market reforms while maintaining political authoritarianism, South Korea pursued both democratization and liberalization. Citizens regained fundamental freedoms. Fairer elections were held. Civil society began to flourish. And at the same time, the country's private sector surged, fueled by education, innovation, and a hunger for development. A key driver of this growth was the emergence of chaebols, large family-owned conglomerates like Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and others. With strong backing from the government, these groups were given favorable loans, tax breaks, and protection from foreign competition. In return, they helped rapidly industrialize the nation. Over time, these firms grew into massive global players, often rivaling and even influencing government decisions. Their reach extended into nearly every part of Korean life: electronics, construction, finance, defense, retail, and beyond. The timing of Korea's economic rise was also crucial. When the country opened up, it had a young, educated, and relatively cheap labor force, just as global markets were looking for new manufacturing hubs. China had not yet entered the global economy with full force. Then, the 1985 Plaza Accord forced Japan to revalue the yen, making Japanese exports more expensive. This shift gave South Korea a competitive edge at a critical moment, allowing its products to gain market share just as its industries were taking off. All of these factors combined to create one of the most impressive economic transformations in recent history. But that success came with trade-offs. The dominance of chaebols, once celebrated, is now the subject of growing concern. These corporations have come to control vast parts of the economy, limit opportunities for smaller companies, and even influence political outcomes. Samsung alone is deeply involved in nearly every major industry in South Korea. Critics argue that such concentrated power stifles innovation, creates inequality, and undermines democratic values. South Korea's rise, shaped by military rule, foreign influence, and top-down planning, now faces the challenge of balancing sustainable growth, strengthening democracy, and reducing corporate dependence while preserving its global reputation.